I finally watched the JoJo's OVA and it was nothing like I thought it was going to be. A few days ago I was finally finishing the Steel Ball Run manga and it made me really excited for the anime adaptation coming in early 2026. The truth is that since I picked up JoJo's about a year ago, I haven't really felt the same about any other anime. I've just become really obsessed, and I still am even though I finished Stone Ocean like 6 months ago. The series just has so much content and things to enjoy from it. I love reading Steel Ball Run, I love playing Heritage for the Future and All-Star Battle R, and soon I'm going to start reading Part 8 and Purple Haze Feedback or any of the other JoJo side quests. But for the past 6 months, what I've been really craving above any other thing is just more JoJo's anime. But as obsessed as I may be, I don't feel like rewatching any of the other parts with less than a year's distance, because that would just be too much. So yesterday I was pondering on my troubled existence and my hunger for more JoJo's anime when this popped in my feed.
Iggy, get out of here! He's still alive!
Who the fuck is this blonde Jean-Pierre Polnareff? Who is this Iggy with zero consciousness behind his eyes? And what is this Cowboy Bebop looking version of Stardust Crusaders? That's right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the 1993 JoJo's Bizarre Adventure OVA. I know I said I didn't feel like rewatching any of the JoJo parts, and that goes especially for part 3 considering it's almost 50 episodes long, but oh surprise, this OVA is only 6 episodes long. My prayers had been answered, and now I just felt curiosity. How could they possibly cram all of Stardust Crusaders in 6 episodes? They didn't, and it's very different from the 2014 anime. But is it good? Or is it shit? First we need to see how the story goes. The story is actually divided into 2 parts. The 1993 OVA with 6 episodes and then the 2000s OVA with 7 episodes. Weirdly enough, the 2000s one goes first in the order of the story, since it covers the first half of Stardust Crusaders before they get to Egypt, and then the 1993 one covers the Egypt part of the story. And honestly, I just think it's funny to see that JoJo's has always had a horrible release schedule for its anime adaptations. Both OVAs come to a total of 13 episodes versus the 48 episodes of the 2014 anime. I'm not going to do a full Stardust Crusaders recap because this video will be too long. So instead I'm going to go through the OVA episodes and their main differences with the full anime before I give you my opinion. Our story begins in episode 1 of the 2000s OVA. We get a brief recap of the final events of part 1 of JoJo's aboard the ship where Jonathan Joestar and Dio had their final fight, and how Dio stole Jonathan's body. These OVAs were made mostly with fans of the manga in mind, so the animators assume previous knowledge from the audience. If you don't know what happens before this, you're a little bit cooked, but that's just how it is.
Take it or leave it!
Then we meet our first sexy buff man, Jotaro Kujo. Bear in mind, Jotaro is supposed to be a 17-year-old high schooler in this story, but he looks like the father of Jotaro from the 2014 anime. Jotaro has put himself in jail to protect others from this ghost figure that is hunting him. Luckily for him, his sexy grandfather Joseph Joestar has come to help him out. This version of Joseph got self-aware and dyed his white hair blonde to look less old. He is also the father of Holy Kujo, Jotaro's mother, who looks really different from how she looks in the anime. Hot Grandpa explains to Jotaro how this ghost is something called a stand, a manifestation of the user's willpower that can take on several shapes and abilities. Joseph has his own stand called Hermit Purple, named after the Hermit Tarot card. The OVA is amazing at portraying stands as intangible ghosts, unlike the anime which shows stands as almost completely solid. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but I do like seeing stands in a different art direction. Regardless of what Joseph says, Jotaro decides to stay in prison. But Joseph was prepared for this as he brought his handsome Egyptian friend, Mohammed Abdul.
I'm gonna come.
Abdul fights Jotaro with his magician's red stand and gets him out of jail. Once out of jail, Joseph explains how Dio was found in a coffin underwater after 100 years, and how his return has awakened the stands in the Joestar bloodline due to Dio using Jonathan's body. Meanwhile, at Dio's crib, we see a beautiful young lady keeping track of our hero's stands and assigning the Star Tarot card to Jotaro's stand. From the context, I assumed that this lady was Enya the Hag, but they changed her form from an old woman to a pretty lady for audience retention. Episode 2 begins with our first look at our hot vampire, Dio. In my opinion, this version of Dio is more evil, but way less sexy, starting from the change in the voice actors. I think the OVA actor is great, but Dio's voice in the anime by Takehito Koyasu is iconic, and I missed it watching the OVA.
向かってくるのか。祖父のジョセフの遺言も聞かず近づいてくるのか。
ほう、向かってくるのか。逃げずにこのディオに近づいてくるのか。
I would even say the same for Jotaro's voice actor, because even though he does a great job for both Jotaro and Star Platinum, I think Daisuke Ono's interpretation is the best version of Jotaro. The rest of the episode takes us through the life of Jotaro, who is chased down by his fangirls, and suddenly he has to face Noriaki, one of Dio's goons who takes control of one of these girls using his stand, Hierophant Green. This is another difference from the anime, as we don't get the fight with the nurse, but Jotaro shows us that regardless of which girl it is that he has to fight, there's always a way to get freaky. Jotaro beats Kakyoin and removes the flesh bud that has him under Dio's control, turning him into an ally. Things were going pretty good, until it started going pretty bad. Imposter Holy Kujo has also awakened a stand, but her body cannot survive under the power of the ability. So now that his mom is going to die, Jotaro and the boys have to find Dio. Thankfully, they have discovered that he is somewhere in Egypt, and they have to kill the bastard to save Jotaro's mother. Before leaving on their quest, Avdol names Jotaro's stand a Star Platinum. Episode 3 starts with our boys aboard the Speedwagon Foundation jet. In the anime, they are flying on a commercial flight that crashed due to the Tower of Grey stand, but here, the jet crashes for unknown reasons. Maybe it was Polnareff who was shown spying on them at the end of episode 2, but I'm not really sure. The boys are stranded in the middle of the ocean, but then coincidentally, they get rescued by a huge ship. They board the ship just to find out that it's empty, and they only find a monkey in a cage. Oh, but they're gonna get knocked on their ass when they realize that the entire ship was actually the monkey's stand ability.
Oh my god!
As if that wasn't enough, the story makes another change and they also get attacked by none other than Jean-Pierre Polnareff,
Bonjour.
I'm gonna come.
who is also a blondie in this adaptation. Our sexy man Avdol defeats sexy boy Polnareff, who has the silver chariot stand, and Jotaro beats the shit out of the monkey. They remove the flesh bud from Polnareff, and now we have a new Crusader. Polnareff tells the boys that he actually joined Dio to find the man who murdered his sister, a man with 2 right hands. Unfortunately, Dio had tricked him, as this murderer also worked under him, and now Polnareff was out for revenge. So far, the OVA has skipped over the Tower of Grey, Dark Blue Moon, and now we're going to skip over the Devil, and sadly, Yellow Temperance. As episode 4 takes us through the arc of the Emperor and the Hanged Man. The boys make it to India, where they are attacked by 2 of Dio's men, Whole Horse, who is a hot cowboy with a gun stand named Emperor, and Jay Guile, who has a reflection stand called the Hanged Man. Jay Guile also happens to be the man with 2 right hands. Polnareff gets in a fight with Avdol, who tells him he's not ready to go fight this guy by himself because he doesn't understand the ability. Polnareff kindly tells him to f**k off and goes to fight both stand users by himself.
I don't think you have the facilities for that, big man.
Of course, Polnareff gets overpowered by these 2 and is about to be killed, if not for Avdol, who makes it at the last second and sacrifices himself for Polnareff. Goodbye, Avdol. Rest in power, King. This continues in episode 5, where Polnareff is full of rage and frustration, which is understandable because they just cracked his homie, and with the help of Kakyoin, he finally defeats Jay Guile, and Whole Horse manages to escape. The boys supposedly bury Avdol's body, and they continue the journey. Back at Dio's crib, we see Enya the Hag suffering from the loss of his son. As it turns out, she was Jay Guile's mother, and she sets off to kill Polnareff. Now we skip over the Empress and the Wheel of Fortune, as episode 6 takes us through the Justice arc. The episode begins with Whole Horse confronting Dio while he's reading the Quran. By this point, we don't know how Dio's stand works, so we are as confused as Whole Horse when Dio teleports behind him. But now that this is my second time watching Stardust Crusaders, I realize that Dio does really unnecessary things for the sole purpose of aura farming. and we'll see some more examples of that in the last episodes. The boys make it to a ghost stand that is full of fog and corpses, but manage to run into a sweet old lady who runs a hotel, and they decide that the most decent thing to do is to go with her.
Oh shit, here we go again.
Of course, this old lady is just Enya the Hack's true form and separates the group so she can attack Polnareff. In episode 7, we see her humiliating Polnareff by making him lick a toilet, but Jotaro calls the BS and attacks Enya. She becomes enraged towards her sexy, beautiful men and summons her full stand, Justice, which is this massive skull with a cloud of fog that she can manipulate. She manages to capture Polnareff and gets incredibly close to killing him. However, a big fire attack comes down on her stand, and we get the big reveal that Avdol is alive.
So that was a fucking lie.
Once Polnareff is free and the boys celebrate that Avdol is back, Jotaro uses his Star Platinum to inhale Enya's stand until she dies. The 2000s OVA is over, but the story continues and concludes in the 1993 OVA. Despite this being 7 years prior, the quality of animation and voice acting remains just as good, and this may very well be the best of both halves as it contains the Egypt part of the story. Episode 1, or Episode 8 in our case, opens with a small recap of the creation of the stone mask and some shots of Dio. After skipping over the lovers, the sun, Death 13, sadly, Judgment, and the High Priestess, we finally re-encounter our sexy boys as they arrive in Egypt. Our heroes are waiting for a sixth Crusader who is being flown over by the Speedwagon Foundation, who is none other than Iggy the Farting Dog.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
Iggy is a French bulldog who loves coffee-flavored gum and also has the full stand. As he gets introduced, the boys get attacked by Ndul and his water stand, Geb, or Jeb, I don't know how you say it. Jotaro manages to outsmart him and launches Iggy like Shohei Ohtani would pitch a baseball and defeats him. Sadly, our boy Kaikyuin was hit by Ndul's stand and retired to a hospital. This takes 2 episodes of the OVA, and we skip over Oingo and Boingo, Anubis, Mariah, and Alisi to make it to my personal favorite arc of this entire part, Darby the Gambler. I'm not really going to go into this episode because it's pretty much the same as the anime, but please check it out if you have a chance because in my opinion, it's one of the best fights in the series. After Peak Fiction, we skip over Boingo and Whole Horse, Pet Shop, and Darby the Player, and we finally make it to Dio's crib. Episodes 11, 12, and 13 give us the complete fight between the Crusaders and Dio, with very little changes to what we get in the anime, and some of the coolest 90s animation I've ever seen. Our boys walk into Dio's crib and find his resting coffin. When they open it, they get knocked on their ass once again when they see that the person inside it is Mohammed Avdol, who was standing right next to them a second ago. Again, an example of Dio's aura farming skills. As this happens, Dio's final servant, Vanilla Ice, kills Avdol with his stand, Cream, which lets him send whatever he touches to a void dimension.
Stop the cap!
Nope, this time they did kill him. Goodbye, Avdol. Rest in power, King. A few moments later, Jotaro gets thrown out of the building by Dio, but survives. Our sexy men are in real trouble now because they cannot decipher Dio's stand powers. Polnareff and Iggy fight Vanilla Ice while Kakyoin and Joseph run away from Dio, who, as I said before, is way less sexy than the one in the anime, but he still is extremely menacing and evil. This, I would say, is supported by how uncensored and gory the animation is for the OVA compared to the anime, especially in the whole sequence of Dio forcing the American ambassador to chase down Joseph and Kakyoin.
Get the fuck out of here!
Back at the mansion, Iggy and Polnareff fight Vanilla Ice, and Iggy saves Polnareff's life, which is the source of the original clip that made me watch the OVA in the first place. Yes, in a moment of pure bliss, Vanilla Ice kills Iggy in the most heartbreaking way. And out of rage, Polnareff finally defeats him. Goodbye, Iggy. Rest in power, King. Back at the city, Dio has closed in on Joseph and Kakyoin. After a brief fight and some aura farming moments, Kakyoin is finally able to crack the code to Dio's stand, but not without it costing him his own life.
Come on now, dawg. Come on, man.
Goodbye, Kakyoin. Rest in power, King. Seconds before dying, he leaves a message for Joseph by hitting a clock tower, which makes Joseph understand that Dio has the power to stop time. A few seconds later, Jotaro finally arrives to the fight and is able to get the message from Joseph before Dio kills him as well. Goodbye, Joseph. Rest in power, King. I've had it up to here with your bullshit, said Jotaro, and they finally broke out into an insane fight. In the middle of the fight, Jotaro unlocks the greatest power known to mankind, plot armor. He is now able to stop time as well, and he beats the shit out of Dio. Not so quick, little boy, said Dio, as he drank Joseph's blood and became even stronger. But it was too late, because Jotaro was already pissed as hell. And after some more fighting, Jotaro finally defeats Dio. The second Dio died, back in Japan, Holy Kujo, now with a different character design, is immediately healed. And at the same time, the Speedwagon Foundation rushes over to transfer Dio's blood back into Joseph's body, and he comes back to life. But the victories are bittersweet because the other Crusaders are gone for good. Sometime after, Polnareff, Joseph, Jotaro say goodbye at the airport, sharing a hug that makes every JoJo fan tear up, and we end our adventure. The end. And that, my friends, is the OVA for part 3 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Even though it's missing a lot of cool moments and the pacing can be a little bit slow at times, it is made with an insane amount of quality and I had a lot of fun watching it. If you love JoJo's, you should really check this out, but I would even argue that someone who has never seen JoJo's would also really appreciate this version of Stardust Crusaders. Thank you so much for watching, don't forget to like and subscribe to keep the channel growing, and I'll see you in the next video.
Goodbye, JoJo!